I think we're live once again. Don't mind me prepping my dice. Once again, you can never have too many sets of dice. Welcome, weary travellers, to another live here on ye old TikTok. Just gonna wait for people to join and we will get into character creation for this D&D 101. Grab a drink, grab some snacks, grab a blanket if it's cold wherever you are. My beverage of choice is once again Monster. Once again, still not sponsored. And the music in the background is one of the compilations by the Fichte Brothers on YouTube. I have put last week's live on YouTube, so it is there for people to watch and rewatch at their leisure. There to refer to for all your D&D 101 nerdy needs, and my glasses are filthy. Great start. Won't be able to read my notes if I can't see through my glasses. Got everything else ready. Didn't clean my glasses. There we go. I feel like I can see a little bit. Just moving my dice tray so I don't tip my dice all over the place. I think I'm going to get started with today's live. So the next session of our D&D 101 is character creation. And basically, character creation, your character can be whatever you want them to be. They can be a Goliath wizard, they can be a gnome barbarian, they can be an Aasimar warlock, they can be a tiefling rogue, whatever your heart desires basically. Although I will say, it's always good to kind of check in with your DM in case the setting for their D&D world, if they've homebrewed something and, for example, say that dragonborns are very rare in their homebrew world, and you want to play, say, a dragonborn paladin, it might not be pleasant for you to play a character of that race if the NPCs in your DM's world are going to act negatively towards your character. Not to say that you wouldn't be able to do it, but it's always good to just double check, basically. So that's something to double check for in session 0, which I'll get into a little bit in a little bit. But yeah, it's always good to check with your DM just before you create anything like a character that's in depth or anything like that. So to create your character, you need to come up with your class, you need to come up with your background, you need to come up with your species or race, however you want to refer to it, and then your personality and the looks, and then you are ready to dive in. And like I said just a little while ago, that session 0, I feel like it's always pretty important to do a session 0, even for people that have been playing together for years and years and years and they know each other pretty well. It's always good to kind of touch base and get a feel for where everybody's at, because if the DM's got quite a dark setting for their campaign, you don't want your players to have a bad time, basically. So session 0 is where people say sort of like what they're okay with being in the campaign, what they're not okay with being in the campaign, things like that. So someone might be okay with the idea of body horror, for instance, if it's kind of like a very dark and gothic and basically Halloween horror-esque campaign, but somebody might not like that at all. And there's no point in someone going through a campaign and not enjoying it. D&D is supposed to be fun. It's where you can sit for 3, 4, 5 hours every week or every 2 weeks if you're able to actually get regular sessions. But that's the time where you get to sit down with friends, sit down with loved ones, and have fun. Basically, you get to be your fun little character. You get to roll your lovely little math rocks and role play. You don't want to do that if you're not having fun at the table. So that's what the session 0 is for. Some people employ the traffic light system, so if you've got like maybe tokens or something like that. So if you've got green, means go ahead. Amber or orange is kind of, you're okay to keep going with the topic that you're on at the moment, but just tread lightly. And if they show a red token, then that is a hard stop, it's a hard no. And people at the table, you should stop what you're doing and just check in with the person and make sure they're okay to continue. If people say, I don't employ that at my table, I don't feel like that's a great table to be at, to be honest. So yeah, session 0 is quite an important thing to do. It also helps to kind of get a baseline of where your characters are in terms of how they know each other. If they know each other, do they know each other? Like, you know, have they got a history together? Were they best friends as children? Did they know each other from a previous adventuring job? Things like that. So it's always good. Also to make sure that you're not all going to turn up as dwarven fighters, because it's not The Hobbit. As cool as that would be to all be dwarven fighters, it's all about balance. And we'll come to that in a little while. So the classes that you can choose from are the Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warlock and Wizard. I don't think there's been any changes since the 2014 version. So this is these are the 2024 rules that I'm going off here. And like I said, it's all about balance. So like I said before, you don't want to have a group of fighters. You don't just want to have a group of clerics. You don't just want to have a group of wizards or a group of barbarians, because yes, while you are strong in some areas, you are definitely weak in others. And the classic array, the classic arrangement really would be a party of 4, to have a cleric, a fighter, a rogue and a wizard. And these were the 4 classes that were originally in D&D when it was first created. So you have a mix of strength, you have a mix of stealth, you have a mix of healing, you have a mix of magic in there as well. So like I said, it's all about balance. And in the rulebook, in the Player's Handbook, it does give kind of guides on if you wanted to play a different class, what to swap out basically. So if you wanted to swap out a bard or a druid for the cleric, so if you wanted to play bard or a druid, you could just take the cleric out instead. Instead of a fighter, you could choose a barbarian, monk, paladin or ranger. Instead of a rogue, you could choose the bard or ranger. And instead of a wizard, you could choose the bard, sorcerer or warlock. Again, it is all up to you. If your group of 4 or 5 is happy to have, say, a sorcerer and a wizard, then that's completely up to you. I'm sure the DM's not going to say no to that. But again, it's worth thinking about what the party needs basically. And when you start, you usually start at level 1. I think that's most common for people playing for the first time, or they've just done a couple of one-shots and now they're starting a campaign. It's common to start playing at level 1, but some like veteran DMs, veteran players, if they've played for say like 10-15 years and they want to just get stuck in, then the DM would probably start them off at a higher level rather than have them at level 1 fighting a bunch of goblins and kind of rescuing kittens from trees. They can start maybe at like level 3, maybe level 5, because then you get your subclasses, you get extra features of your class at different levels. So they're ready to kind of get stuck in. They know what the class is about, they know what the campaigns are about, and they're just ready to get to the higher level fights and stuff like that. Once you've chosen, put my teeth back in. Once you've chosen your class, you can choose your origins. So that's your background and your species. You'll also pick a couple of languages as well. I'm not going to get into too much into the backgrounds here because there's a separate part later on, so I will go further into the backgrounds when we come to it, but I will overview them here. So you've got the acolyte, artisan, charlatan, excuse me, criminal, entertainer, farmer, guard, guide, hermit, merchant, noble, sage, sailor, scribe, soldier, and wayfarer. So there's quite a lot to choose from. And different ability scores kind of associated with different backgrounds. So the ability scores that I mentioned last live, which were the physical ones being strength, dexterity and constitution, and your kind of like mental / personality wise ones being intelligence, wisdom and charisma. So the the charlatan, they are associated with dexterity, constitution and charisma. And the sage, I've just pulled these as examples, they're associated with constitution, intelligence and wisdom. Other backgrounds have different ability classes associated with them as well. So once you've chosen your background, you will record all the features and proficiencies and the skills and stuff as well. So with each background you get proficiency in 2 skills, so that could be medicine and nature, or it could be insight and perception, or it could be athletics and arcana, something like that, depending on the background, and what entails in that background will depend on the skill. You also get to choose from a tool to be proficient in as well, so that would be sort of like woodworking tools, herbalism kits or alchemist tools, things like that. You also get to choose from starting equipment, which again differs depending on the background that you choose. So again, charlatan, I've taken this as an example. So you get to choose either a forgery kit, costume, fine clothes and 15 gold pieces, or 50 gold pieces. Same for the sage, you can choose from quarterstaff, calligrapher's supplies, a book, parchment, robe, and 8 gold pieces, or the 50 gold pieces. So with that 50 gold pieces, rather than choosing the list of predetermined equipment supplies from that background, you could choose from a list of actual equipment. You can choose what you want basically. Then you come on to your species. Now there's a few differences than in the 2014 version. They've added the ASMR or ASMR, however you want to pronounce that. I honestly still don't know how to pronounce that myself. And they've added the Goliath. They've also changed the orc. It used to be half orc in the 2014 version, and now they've just changed it from half orc to the full orc. So the species available, ASMR or ASMR, dragonborn, dwarf, elf, gnome, Goliath, halfling, human, orc and tiefling. And I think there's been some differences in terms of the dwarf subraces. So the elves still have their subraces as the drow, the high elf and the wood elf. The halflings still have it's the stout halfling, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, the Lightfoot halfling, I think. I double check, but the player's handbook is on my phone that I am using to go live right now, so I can't actually physically check. And I think they've still got the gnome subclasses as well. Again, I'm trying to remember those. Oh, my mind's a sieve at the moment, I can't remember, but I think they do have the subclasses for the gnomes, the halfling and the elves, but they've gotten rid of, as far as I can see, if anyone knows for sure, just you can let me know in the comments, but I think they've gotten rid of the hill dwarf and the mountain dwarf subclasses in this version of the player's handbook. I'm not entirely sure, but if they have, they have. Also, the size and speed for your character is determined by your species. That's something else that's been changed as well. So the gnome and halfling would be classed as small creatures, and all the others would be classed as medium. And each species has a base walking speed of 30 feet, apart from the wood elf and the Goliath, who have a base walking speed of 35. Now, in the 2014 version, the halfling, gnome and dwarf all had a base walking speed of 25 feet. So, because obviously the gnome and the halfling are small races, that being round about 3.5 feet, and the dwarf usually comes in about between 4 and 4.5 feet tall. But they're kind of short and stout, so that was reflected in their base walking speed of 25 feet. But they've increased it to 30 feet in the 2024 rules, so I guess that's just something that I'm going to have to try and remember. Especially next week, hopefully we've got an Icewind session, and my character is a Dwarven Cleric, so fingers crossed I remember how much speed she has. So once you've picked your species, it's also good to have questions like, just think background wise in terms of who raised your character, what happened in their childhood, did they have a best friend, did they have an imaginary friend, as they got older, did they have any jobs, did they take on jobs where they lived, did they travel, have they adventured before, and what kind of thing do they want to get out of the adventure that they're going to go on now. After that, you choose two languages, and everyone, basically all player characters will know common language, which is basically, it's common, it's spoken by everybody, all the NPCs, most humanoid races as well, they will be able to speak common. There are other standard languages. You have common sign language, Draconic, Dwarvish, Elvish, Giant, Gnomish or Gnomish, Goblin, Halfling and Orc. So a lot of the characters, a lot of the races will know common and another one of those languages. Then we have the rarer languages. So that's Abyssal, Celestial, Deep Speech, Druidic, Infernal, Primordial, Sylvan, Thieves' Cant and Undercommon. So these would be spoken, I think Tieflings get one of these. I can't remember which one it was though. But also, things, enemies like demons, things like this, they will have a rarer language. Once you have come this far, you then have to work out your ability scores. Now, there's a few ways to do it. You can go for standard array, so you've got set numbers to distribute between the strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom and charisma, and that is a 15, 14, 13, 12, 10 and 8. So you can min-max, or you can try and even things out across the board. It's completely up to you. And say you wanted a stronger character, you'd have 15 in strength. If you wanted them to be quite dexterous and quite have a high constitution, give them 14, and then just distribute those numbers between your ability scores. Random is, I think I've always used random, so random would be, this is why I got my dice ready. Before, you would roll 4d6. We'll just do that now, see what I actually get. So you'd roll 4d6, take away the lowest score. So for me that was a 1. I got a 3, a 3 and a 4. So that would be a score of 10. You do that 6 times and then that is your ability scores, and you would, depending on the outcome, you basically just put the numbers that you get against the scores that you want. You can be really, really lucky and you could potentially get 18 for one of the scores. So obviously that would be, you'd have to roll at least 3 6s. It is possible, but not very likely, unfortunately. But yeah, I think when we were doing our Curse of Strahd campaign, which I'm hoping that's going to get started up again, our DM said you can either use standard array or roll for it, but if you roll for it, you can only roll once. So whatever you get, that's what you're using. And I managed to roll really, really well. My lowest score was a 10. And I had a high elf druid, and I think I got 16. Did I get 16 or 17 for my wisdom? I know I got 16 for my constitution. I just rolled really, really well, and I did it in front of my DM, so he knew I wasn't cheating. But yeah, so that's the random way of doing it. You roll 4d6 6 times, take away the lowest, and add them up each time for the ability scores. Then you have point buy, so you have a total of 27 points, and each number, depending on costs a different amount. So you can take a score of 8, that doesn't cost anything. You can also take a score of 15, that costs 9 points. So going back to the min-max, you could have 3 scores at 15, but then you would have to take 3 scores at 8 as well, because you would have used your 27 points with those 3 scores of 15. You wouldn't be able to have any points left, so you would have to take the 8. And again, if you were a person that likes to min-max, then feel free to do that. Your background does also, you're able to increase one score by 2 and another score by 1, or pick 3 scores and increase those by 1 again. So like I said, you could balance it out. You could make those 3 15 scores, you can make them 16, or you can make those 3 8 scores 9, just to make them slightly higher. Certain classes have different abilities in terms of what they use for their skills, especially for their spells as well. So the barbarian, their highest ability score should be strength, because they're in the thick of things, in the thick of melee. They are the ones that are hard hitters, and they soak up energy basically. They're barbarians and paladins, they tend to be like the tanky characters. Wizards, their ability score, highest ability score should be intelligence, because that's what they use to cast their spells. So that would be their spell casting modifier, and to have that pretty low, that would nerf the wizard's abilities really. And a monk, they also tend to be in the thick of things, but their ability score would be dexterity. So where the barbarian is a heavy hitter, the monk is they're more nimble, they're more fluid-like in their movements, and they're able to dodge out of the way as well. Oh yeah, something else I made a note of. So in the 2024 version of the rules, the background gives you the ability score increase. And it's the same across the board. So you get to increase 1 score by 2 and another score by 1, or 3 scores, increase 3 scores by 1. But in the 2014 version, it was the species, it was the race that gave you ability increases. The half orc gives a +2 to constitution and a +1 to strength. And I think it's the stout halfling, you get a +1 to constitution as well. I think the elves, they get an increase to wisdom or intelligence, I think it was, but they flipped it. Instead of it being the species or race, this time it's the background that you get your increase to ability score. So once you've noted that down on your character sheet, you can do that manually. But I always just use D&D Beyond because it's so much easier. Everything gets calculated for you. I don't know how people did that with character sheets, because I have done it once and it drove me insane. I didn't know what to add, what to increase. It's just my silly little brain not being able to compute. So once you have your ability scores, you need to apply your modifiers. So taking the standard array, a score of 15 and 14, you'd get a +2 to either your strength or your dexterity, any of your ability scores. With a 13 and a 12, you get a +1. With a 10, you would get 0. You wouldn't get any pluses, but you wouldn't get any minuses either. So 10's kind of like just average across the board. And with an 8, you would get a -1 to that. Then it's time to choose appearance, personality, basically. What does your character look like? Skin colour, hair colour, eye colour. colour of their teeth, I guess, if you wanted to. If you wanted to have like a scary looking tiefling maybe. And the personality, which kind of leads into alignment. You could choose your alignment before you choose your personality and kind of let your alignment develop your personality, or come up with a personality and then choose one of the alignments to best fit the personality for your character. So you've got from lawful and chaotic, and good and evil. So you've got lawful good, neutral good, and chaotic good. Lawful neutral, true neutral, chaotic neutral, and lawful evil, neutral evil, and chaotic evil. I will say that if you wanted to choose an evil character, then it might be, again, something to bring up in session 0. So you don't want to be playing, I mean, this is just like my 2 cents that I'm putting in. It's not fantastic to play, say, a chaotic evil character when all the other characters are either neutral good or chaotic good or lawful neutral, things like that, because they're not really going to mesh well. They're not really going to gel well with the other group unless they are, say, pretending to be, I don't know, chaotic neutral or something like that. But if you're doing, say, like an evil campaign, one of my brothers has like written his own campaign, and we started playing that, and our characters were just evil across the board. And it was pretty fun to kind of explore that side of character creation rather than just being a goody two-shoes. But yeah, so I would say if you're going to play a chaotic evil character, then or any of the evil alignment, make sure that everyone else is okay with it as well. Again, it goes back to you don't want to be sitting at a table for 3, 4, 5 hours and get really, really annoyed and not have a good time because one of the other characters is basically an arsehole. It is very much character creation. You can do whatever you want, but also it's nice to be mindful of other people as well. So when you're choosing your alignment, it's good to think of that. Also, certain clerics and paladins, depending on the gods that they worship, if their god is lawful good, then chances are it's the paladin or cleric would be lawful good as well. Same for chaotic good or neutral good or anything like that. So if you were to choose a god that was like lawful evil, maybe your paladin is lawful evil as well. So that could work well for the campaign or the one shot that you're using. But again, it is good to just check if you're going to go down that route. Certain creatures and enemies are unaligned in the game. The example that the player's handbook gives is a shark. They're savage and brutish, but they are predators. So it's not like they have rational thought. They're not evil. They're just predators. They hunt and they kill and they eat to survive. So it's not like an evil lich or anything like that. It's just a shark is doing what it needs to live, whereas a lich is doing something for their own personal gain. So once you've gone for your alignments, make sure that you record all of the class features that you've got. So that would be your saving throws, increase to skills, so you've got your proficiency as well, your passive perception, things like that. And then it comes to the HP. So your hit points are based on the class that you have. So barbarians, there's different hit dice. So you've got the D12. You can see that. So the D12, that would be for the barbarian. The D10, where's the D10? There we go. D10. Not me, just Loki showing off my dice. And this will be for the fighter, paladin, ranger, bard, cleric, druid, and monk. The D8. These are for the rogue and the warlock. And D6 are for the squishy wizards and sorcerers. So you get one of these hit die, depending on your class, you get one of these hit die per level. So you get one at level 1, another one at level 2, another one for a total of 3 at level 3, and so on. So when you come and have a short rest, you can roll the hit die and you would get that number of hit points back after a short rest. Also, you'd want to record your initiative. So that would be your dexterity modifier. So for example, if you had a 16 in dexterity, you would have a modifier of 3. So when the DM says those blessed or accursed words, roll me initiative, you would roll a d20. I do have a bigger one to show. You would roll a d20, and whatever comes up on the d20, you would add your modifier. So that +3, you would add that, and that would be your initiative. Here's my big d20. Also roll your armor class, so that would be 10 plus your dexterity modifier. So again, if you had a dexterity of 16, you'd have a modifier of +3, and that would make your armor class 13. But that is before you add like class abilities and armor and shields and things like that. So if you added a shield, I think that adds a +1, and I think leather armor adds 1 as well. So I think that would be 15 armor class. And armor class just basically means how hard it is for you to get hit. Sorry. Also, you want to note down your attacks. So melee attacks, usually that means you would use your strength modifier. Certain weapons and classes are able to use their dexterity instead. And the ranged weapons, they are dexterity modifier as well. When you cast a spell, you have your spell save DC and your attack bonus. So the save DC is 8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier and plus your proficiency. So at level 1 you have a proficiency of 2, so that would be a 10, and then your spellcasting ability modifier. Like I said before, different spell users use different abilities to cast their spells. So the wizards use intelligence, bards and paladins I think use charisma. So they would have, if you had a wizard who had an intelligence score of 18, they would have a +4. So that would be 8 plus their proficiency of 2, which is 10, plus 4, which is 14. So save DC, certain spells you cast, the enemy would have to roll, say wisdom or constitution or charisma, something like that, and they would have to get a 14 or higher to avoid being hit with that spell. And same for your attack bonus, you'd have your spellcasting ability modifier plus your proficiency bonus. So again, if you had that 18 in intelligence, that would be a modifier of +4, and your proficiency, which is +2, so that would be a +6. You would then roll your d20, again just showing off the big d20, and then whatever number you get, you would get +6, so that you cast certain spells to attack. And then if you hit the DC for the if you hit the AC, sorry, for the enemy, then the spell would hit and they would get the damage for it. I'm not going to go into the spells here because that is a whole other chapter. I think the characters have their spell lists in the player's handbook, so we can go into the spells once we get to. Hello, Mr. Fly. Apologies, I have my window open and there's a fly. He wants to join in on the live. So yeah, so you note your save DC, your attack bonus, and depending on the class that you choose would depend on the spells that you gain access to. So you'd have a couple of first level spell slots, and you get your cantrips. So you'd have a list to choose from, you choose those, and then make sure you record those on your character sheet, ready for when you go through the sessions. Then it's basically what to name your character. There are so many different fantastical name generators out there. Or just use, I think there were a couple in the original Player's Handbook, the 2014 version, where I looked through, I thought, yeah, that sounds like a cool name, I'm taking it. I think I did that with my Half-Orc Ranger. I just saw her and I was like, oh, Vola seems like a cool name, that's what she's called. And next, so like when you, obviously character creation, you just do your character, apologies, you create a character at level 1, but the character development just keeps going and going as you level up. So you get XP, which is tracked by the DM. It's not something that you'll be able to track yourself, and it scales with each level. So it's, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, because again I can't check because the BHB is on my phone. I think it's something like 300 or 400 XP to get from level 1 to level 2, and then another 900 to get from level 2 to level 3, and then the XP, the number of XP between levels just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think to get to level 5 it's fairly easy, but then to get from level 5 to level 10 it's a lot harder, because there's a lot more that you can do, there's a lot more that the enemies that you're going to come up against, there's a lot more that they can do. And the XP just gets, the amount that you need just gets, like I said, bigger and bigger and bigger. And like I said before, some DMs might start at a higher level, so you would already have had that scale. But like I said, it's going to take a while. If you start at level 5, it's going to take a while for you to get to level 6, rather than going from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 in just a couple sessions. It might take a couple sessions, like say even 5 or 6, to get from level 5 to level 6. When you level up, people generally stick with the class that they started with, so they just stick as a barbarian or stay as a cleric, but you can multi-class, and I will get into that in a little sec. Like I said before, the hit die number increases, so at level 2 you have 2 hit die, level 3 you have 3 hit die, and so on. You can, to work out your max HP, you can roll for it, or you can use the fixed health increase. Rolling for it can be really good, or it can be really bad. So, for example, if you have a barbarian, you start off with the full 12 points from your hit die plus your constitution modifier. So for example, if you had a constitution of 16, that is a +3 for your modifier, so that is 15 hit points at level 1, and that's pretty beefy. And then when you get to level 2, if you roll the d12 and you get a 12 again, that's again plusing your constitution modifier of 3, so that's another 15 on top, and 30 hit points at level 2. That's huge. It really is. It's gonna take a lot for to take out a level 2 character with 30 hit points. But on the other side, if you get a 1, that even with your constitution modifier of +3, that's only 4 extra hit points. It's still not bad. So as from 14 to 19 at level 2, that's pretty good. But if you're getting into like level 8, level 9, level 10, and you roll a 1, you kind of lost the lottery on that one. So it gives with one hand and takes away with the other. It's completely up to you whether or not you roll or you use the fixed HP increase. But if you choose one, you've got to stick to it. Don't roll one level but then say, oh, actually, I only rolled a 2 for my last level, I'm going to use the fixed increase this time. You got to pick one and stick to it, basically. So the increase, this is all plus the constitution modifier. So for the d12, you get a +7. For the d10, it's a +6. For the d8, it's a +5, and the d6, it's a +4. I think it's kind of the average roll for that dice, I think. And again, once you level up, you need to adjust any proficiencies that you get, any ability modifiers, anything that increases, you need to note that on your character sheet as well. If you are going to start at higher levels, it's a good thing to ask, say if you were starting at level... The fly has returned. I didn't realise I was having guests on this live. Shoo fly. Anyway, so if you're going to start at higher levels, it could potentially be worth discussing with your DM whether or not you have any magic items to start with. I'm not talking legendary game-breaking swords or daggers that deal +50 damage, but for example, if you're a level 5 and you had a common magic item maybe you could have worked it into your backstory somehow. So again, that would be something to discuss with your DM. And I mentioned multiclassing before. So I always like the idea of a druid being able to multiclass into a barbarian so they get the ability to rage. Who would want to fight a raging polar bear? So they rage one round and they wild shape into a polar bear the next. I mean, I know I wouldn't want to go up against a raging polar bear in real life or in D&D, but you need to make sure that you hit the prerequisites for both of the abilities associated with those classes. So for a barbarian it's strength, and for the druid it's wisdom, and you would need to have a score of 13 in both of those before you can multi-class. So if I was a druid and I had 18 in wisdom, that's great, but if I only had a 10 in strength, I wouldn't be able to multi-class into barbarian because I don't meet the requirements to multi-class into that class, if that makes sense. And if you are going to multi-class, it's also important to make note of the fact that your hit die aren't going to stay the same. So as a barbarian, you would have the D12, but as the druid... Wait, has the druid changed? Bear with me. I can't even remember my own notes. I thought I took wrong notes, but I didn't. No. So, for example, if you're a level 5 character, you had 3 levels in barbarian and 2 levels in druid, you would have 3 d12 hit die and 2 d8 hit die because you multi-classed into different classes. But if you chose, for example, if you had 3 levels in fighter and 2 levels in paladin, you would have 5 d10 because both of those classes have a d10 as their hit die. So you are multi-classing into a different class, but it's the same hit die, so you don't need to calculate any differently. Now this took me a while to wrap my head around. So if you're multi-classing into other spellcaster classes, it makes a difference to how many spell slots that you get access to. So you need to calculate it. I'm sure it made sense to someone, but it just took me so long to wrap my head around it. So, for example, you need to calculate. I'm trying to explain it so I don't sound like an absolute muppet. So, if you take all the levels. In order to calculate the spell slots that you have available, all levels of Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer and Wizard, half of the level, if you round up, of the Paladin and Ranger, and a third rounded down of the Fighter and Rogue if you're an Eldritch Knight or the Arcane Trickster subclasses. So, the example here is if you have 4 levels in Ranger and 3 levels in Sorcerer, you have the spell slots of a level 5 character when calculating your spell slots. Even though you're a level 7 character, because you have 3 levels in Sorcerer, so that's all 3, but then you have 4 levels in Ranger, so you have to half that, and then that gives you the 5. So you are a level 7 character, but you have the spell slots of a level 5 spellcaster. It did take me a while to wrap my head around that. So for example, again, if you had 2 levels in Bard, 2 levels in Paladin, and 3 levels in Fighter, you would have you'd have 2, 4. You'd be again a level 3 levels. Yes, I'm doing math on the fly. You'd still be a level 7 character, but again, you would have spell slots of a level 4 spellcaster because you have the 2 levels in Bard, so you take all of those. You have 2 levels in Paladin, but you half that, so you get another spell slot, and then you have 3 levels in Fighter, but you third that. Again, that's another one. So that would be 4. You'd have the spell slots of a level 4 spellcaster. There is a table in the 2024 Player's Handbook. There is a table. I was trying to remember quite how many like levels of like spell slot levels that you actually get, but I don't know why I tried. There's just so many numbers and so many iterations. There is a table that explains so like what level you are and what level and how many spell slots you get of each level spell. But again, if anyone has any questions about that, please do let me know and I will try and explain it again. I know that I did babble through that, but it just does take a little while to just go over the information and work it out. That's if you wanted to multi-class into different spellcaster classes. And then at the very end of the character creation chapter, there was a D100 trinkets table. Now, I was going to do it live here, but again, the player's handbook is actually on my phone. I don't have a physical copy with me. So I did ask my lovely Alexa, making sure that she's not hearing me, I did ask her to give me 3 numbers between 1 and 100, and then I just made note of what that number was on the trinket table. So we had 55, a miniature cage with no door, number 9, a lock of someone's hair, and number 20, a glass jar containing a bit of flesh floating in pickling fluid. Yum. So this is something that it said, you know, your character can roll on this table, and it's something that they have found on their travels, and it's something that they have with them potentially for the duration of the campaign. You can probably write it into your backstory somehow. And also the DM can also use these trinkets as random loot. So they can say, so you've finished clearing out the cave, you've defeated the horde of goblins, and you find 5 trinkets in this treasure chest, and the DM would roll D100 or the, where is it? A D10 in the percentile. D10 and percentile. And then they would just read out what those trinkets are. And I think that's it for character creation. So, you guys, what are we discussing today? I've just come to the end of character creation for D&D. So you just come in at the end, I'm afraid. Although you are just in time to see some artwork that my fiance decided to draw for me. He has, for the longest time, wanted to join a campaign, but only if he can have a pet Tarask. So I don't know if you can see this here. He has drawn, that is his character. That's very bright. That's his character wearing a cape, a sword and a kilt. That's his pet Tarask, Nibbles, and in there you can see Go Nibbles. It's backwards, but it says Go Nibbles, and the sign says Kill all mortals. And he said, that was the Tarask eating my character. This Tarask has bitten my character's armour. So, but yeah, there's some exclusive artwork for D&Done. He did want to do that in the middle of my notes, but I thought, no, you can do that at the end. That's going to distract me otherwise. But yeah, I mean, I've already told him. My brother said that he would write a one-shot and he could have a pet Tarask. So hopefully he will then join our D&D sessions and I will get him as obsessed with it as I am. So, yes, if anyone else has any questions, I will gladly ask them, answer them rather, especially if it's to go over the spellcasting multi-class spell slots again, because it was a bit of a nightmare. Sounds like the Tarask needs to be trained a tad better. Sadly needed a better animal handling. I think he did. He keeps saying, what if I nerfed all my other ability scores and just had the max animal handling? I just keep shaking my head at him. Oh, my brother said that he would let him have a pet Tarask, so check out. Sorry, I can't read that properly. The light's in my eyes. Sorry. Anyway, I think you guys have just you played 2014 or 2024 rules. These are, I'm going through the 2024 rules at the moment. I did start a series going through the 2014 version rules, but I did it at a really inopportune time. It was coming up to Christmas and everyone was super busy. I couldn't find the time to sit through the player's handbook and make my notes, but I am going through the 2024 version and I'm just kind of making comparisons to the 2004 rules as well. There are some differences, but they seem to be, on the whole, they seem to be pretty much the same. I don't know if anybody else has played D&D. Just leave that hanging. Sadly walked away from my group, so I'm looking for a new one and it's a nightmare. I can imagine. I mean, our group, I mean, there's a few of us that here at D&Done, but I'm currently running Descent into Avernus, and the group is so big that the next session won't be until July now, which is not surprising, but it's incredibly frustrating. I think there's 7 players, so 8 including me as DM, and I think just with our jobs, trying to find time to play sessions a nightmare. But I can only imagine that trying to find actually a new group to play with, I can only imagine how hard that is as well. 7 players is crazy. It really is. I think my brother's also running Icewind Dale at the moment. I think there's 4. Is there 4 of us? Yeah, there's 4 of us, and I thought 4 players was hard enough. But then people kept saying, oh, you know, this person wants to play, can they join? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then all crowded round a dining room table trying to not A, knock each other's drinks all over the place or knock the snacks to the floor, and B, trying to keep the dice on the table. I think we've been lucky. I don't think there have been any murder hobos in our party. I think role-playing wise, we've got quite a few jokesters, but no murder hobos. Yeah, I mean, I did say at the beginning of the live, D&D's supposed to be fun. You don't want to be sat at a table with people that make the session not fun, because, you know, the sessions could be between 3, 4, 5 hours long. You really don't want to be sat there for so long wishing that you were somewhere else, because that's not the point of D&D. The point of D&D is it's escapism, it's fun. You get to roll your shiny math rocks and then scream at them when they land on a 1. But it's meant to be fun. If it's not fun, then you're not doing it right, basically. Or there are other people that are not doing it right. Class and race do I like to main? The character that I played most was my High Elf Druid in our Curse of Strahd campaign. I think the Druid is probably my favourite class, but the first character I ever played was a Half-Orc Ranger, and she will forever hold a place in my heart. But in a one-shot we played recently, I played a Wood Elf Monk, and when I leveled up, you know, and you get the extra 10 foot of movement, I was just like 45 foot of movement, just zooming around the battle map. It was really, really fun. And what about you? What classes and races do you main? Which ones have you played the most? The fly again. Shoo. Tis not a guest kind of live. Shenanigans for days, indeed. Yeah, I do quite like this fly. Sorry, I do quite like a good bard. I don't think I could play a bard personally. I'm not witty enough, and my singing skills are shocking. But I do appreciate it when someone can carry off the wit and the banter and that kind of thing. I think I just kind of do bards a misservice if I try to play one. Shoo fly. Maybe that's a wild shaped druid. Hey, you just murdered that guy. Me. No, I didn't. 21 in deception will do that. Must have been the wind. With an arrow sticking out of his head as well. Oh, I may have to go and take care of this fly. Shoo. It's this pesky druid. He wants in on this live. But I think I'm going to have to end this live for today. My fiance will be home any second now. So unfortunately I will have to end the live. I do apologise. It has been fun to chat after this session. I think I will be live next week again at 7 p.m. BST. So and we'll be going into the different classes. I'm not sure how I'm going to break it up in terms of if it's going to be one class per live, or if I'm just going to kind of condense it and have a couple of classes in each live and just do a brief overview. We will see. But yeah, I will be back next week, 7 p.m. BST, Friday the 23rd, I think. I will have to double check. Just roll with it and see what happens. Yeah, I think that's a good philosophy for life, to be honest. That's definitely been me at work today. So yeah, next week, 7 p.m. BST, we will be going into the different classes. So thank you to everyone who has liked, everyone who has commented, interacted. It does mean a lot, and hopefully I will see you next week.